is, yeah.
This is not gonna be immediate.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, just only,
I'll charge it.
Oh, these batteries don't charge, these
They
batteries.
charge.
This one doesn't. This one doesn't.
Why?
Because that one's not a rechargeable battery.
But it's still brand new. I know, sir.
It is, but it's not the green one.
Just put it on.
It's not the
Charge
rechargeable.
open. I put it on charge and you just.
I have to see which one's positive. See, it has little numbers, it says positive or low. Right here, it says positive and negative, and when you look at the bottom of the battery, it says positive and negative.
Like that.
That one doesn't charge. It's another green one, you're missing a green one.
I choose this size.
Mhm. Send back here.
Good.
It's beautiful outside today.
Yes.
2 days in a row.
We go to beach.
No, too cold for the beach.
No. Yes.
Where are we starting the next
Yeah.
section?
Yes, today, but it hasn't been registered yet. It was on this morning on WhatsApp, but there's nothing that's been, there's no registration yet. It'll be coming up this week, so.
But we still have
That's it.
Good morning, everyone. We'll begin today by turning to page 1 in the prayer book. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching, and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Idams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached.
By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Refuge of all sentient beings without exception, divine subjugator of terrifying Maras, together with their hosts of demons, the one who understands all realities without exception exactly as they are, transcendent conqueror, together with your disciples, please come here to this place. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I've gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Okay, and then to page 11. Namo, to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence, I offer the fundamental ground of appearance and existence. I supplicate you to thoroughly liberate the 3 realms. Please grant your blessings and overturn the depths of samsara. Sublime Master, wish-fulfilling jewel, crown ornament, the inconceivable, inexpressible mind of the victorious ones, the one endowed with the 5 wisdoms of omniscience, gracious one, the embodiment of love, precious protector of teachings, I supplicate you from within the essence of mind. Please grant your blessings from within the innate nature. Please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, this primordially unborn, completely pure mind. Transcendent conqueror, the one thus gone, foe destroyer of afflictive emotions, completely perfected Buddha, endowed with logic and virtue, the one gone to bliss, knower of the world, captain, tamer of beings, the unexcelled teacher of gods and men, I respectfully prostrate, completely touching my head to the stainless feet of the unequaled Shakya king. At the time of your birth, leader of 2-legged beings, taking 7 steps on this great earth you proclaimed, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise even then, I prostrate. Possessing a body of complete purity, your sublime form is excellent. An ocean of primordial wisdom, you are like a golden mountain. The one whose renown is evident throughout the three worlds, protector of supreme attainment, to you I prostrate. To you who are endowed with the supreme marks, whose face is like an immaculate moon, to you, the one with a complexion like gold, I prostrate. A flawless one such as you among the three levels of existence is most exquisite. Unparalleled, omniscient one, to you I prostrate. Supreme among humans, captain of those to be tamed, the one thus gone who severs the all-binding fetters, who with senses pacified is utterly pacified and skilled in peace. To that one, the one who dwelled at Shravasti, I prostrate. Refuge endowed with great compassion, totally omniscient one who indicates the way, ground bases for oceans of merit and qualities, I prostrate to the one thus gone, the pure cause free from attachments, the virtue that liberates from the lower realms, the altogether supreme ultimate truth, to the pacifying Dharma I prostrate. Having been liberated, they also reveal the path to liberation. Thoroughly respectful of the three higher trainings, they are a field of sublime qualities. To the Sangha, I also prostrate. So back to page 9.
Thank you.
so na yon den gan zo yen de yen ye lai chang zhe lo an to me lo jai je ve je ge ve nge zong le lo shen ge gong dong zhe zhe lai xie zhe re zhu lai chang zhe lo to ne tu ve long lan la pa da la ra de gu shi ge dong ba yon den shi gen gu na yan chak sa lo. And to page 15. I prostrate to the youthful Manjusri, to those in the worlds of the 10 directions, however many there are, all the lions among humans who appear during the 3 times. To all of them, without exception, I pay homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. The force of my aspiration prayer for excellent conduct brings all the victorious ones directly to mind. Bowing down with bodies as numerous as atoms in the realms, I prostrate to all the victorious ones. In a single atom there are Buddhas as numerous as atoms, each residing in the midst of their sons and daughters. Like that, I imagine the whole Dharmatatu completely filled with victorious ones. To those with oceans of inexhaustible, praiseworthy qualities, with sounds containing oceans of tones of melodic speech, I express the qualities of all the victorious ones. I praise all the Sugatas. With the finest flowers, finest garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, supreme lamps, and the finest incense, I make offerings to the victorious ones. With the finest cloth, supreme scents, and fine powders equal to Mount Meru, all displayed in supreme and magnificent ways, I make offerings to those victorious ones. With vast and unsurpassable offerings, I venerate all the victorious ones. Through the power of faith and excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to the victorious ones. Whatever negative actions I have performed with body, speech, and also mind, overpowered by desire, aggression, and stupidity, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in everyone's merit, the victorious ones of the 10 directions, the Bodhisattvas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all beings. I request the protectors, the lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who, passing through the stages of awakening, attain Buddhahood beyond attachment, to turn the unsurpassable Dharma wheel. I supplicate with my palms joined together those who intend to demonstrate nirvana, to remain for kalpas as numerous as atoms in the realms, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. I dedicate whatever slight virtue is accumulated through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating to enlightenment. And to page 14.
Jawa Kunje Yonten Rabjo Jing Devara Yewa Tamje Dage Do Ameto Tamba Tiwa Tamba Dang Sinye Namdai Chupa Donjo Dang
Marme
Jodan Dubo Tamba Ye Jarwa Tadana Nane Chupa Je Anaza Tamba Nanda Tenjo Dang Chema Purme Rera Nyamba Dang Koba Chebara Pabe Chukenje Jawa Teta Layan Chupaje Choba Kana Lamye Jajewa Teta Jawa Tamje Layamo Asambo Julai Tibe Todaki Jawa Kunai Chamse Chupaje Doja Shetan Demo Wangene Ledan Adan Yin Yin Jang Dage Jiba Jinjeba Da Tamje Dage Sosoraya Achuji Jawa Gundan Sanje Ze Ranjara Nandan Lodan Melodan Anduwa Kunje Sona Kanlaya Antada Kunje Jesu Dayera Kana Chuji Jeten Tomada Chanja Rambara Sanje Majani Mundeda Dage Tamjela Kolo Lana Mebara Kurvarga Anyanya Dadon Kanye Tedala Andoa Kula Pinshin Gereche Gewa Jenge Dunye Yobayan Dage Timur Rajara Zovaje Changze Awadai Chujin Yawadan Jesu Yeran Gunshin Sovaye Jungze Dake Jezaba Tamje Zobe Janjo Jimbo.
And page 16. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
Samje Namje Samba Loye Jeda Jedawa Ache Joy De Mon De Baye Shuje Kolo Kodu Damge Doje Jajere Sandon Yenje Mado Dije Bonjombo Serje Lumbo Dawara Jivik Shaje Jarbe Shaula Gujo Dime Wazara Doje Jingula De Madi Jing Woje Dawa Tamje Seba Kunjen Chujeje Nyamen De Gongre Jagujo Humi Choje Yenge Podon De Sonje Kunje Ngoni Rosum Choga Mosum Tonze Savela Me Shaula Gujo Kondo Chojo Don Kenje Tena Dirge Lomra Joga Konsudo Tende Dombi Choje Jarmebo Zumbrando Damje Deri Namo Yala Yeke Dan Le Dan De Jige Tum Da Da Me Yeke Nam Ne Do Gunje Da Ginje Zomba Tam Jige De Da Ge Chu De Do. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Tin tin da nga tu. Now 다 가창가 온도 프로그램 로와 온도 프로그램 티나네 다 가서 치게 되네 다 온도 세야지 다 온도 람나 되기래 다 양면은 주담지기 히덴다 망이다 되네 치게 되네 다 로도 넘바 해 세야지 요래 텐드네 텐드다 티나네 다 가서 가창 텐저니까와 내고조버에서
So we are in the midst of our 3-year program, the 3-year Mahamudra, Fivefold Path of Mahamudra program, which begins with Ngundro, or the preliminaries. So we are still at the beginning of this course, where we have, we're going through the outer preliminaries right now, or the outer Ngundro is the word in Tibetan, which literally means preliminaries. And so these outer preliminaries are really like the fundamental basis, the foundation of all other levels of Buddhist practice. And these outer preliminaries are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And so they begin with reflection. So there are 4 fundamental reflections. The first one being the difficulty of being born a human being with all of the leisures and endowments.
밀루 세야다 참이 힝게 요래 예나양 지게 메이키 루덴데 고 짜침보 칸디임바다 대가나기 톱카보 칸디임바 다가서 가자 힙자 슈버레 되네 디제네 다 단단가 조디 계시 톱카보 칸디임비 예나양 단단가 조다 텐저지 밀루 림보체데 톱디 요러와 단디 톱데완데양 되네 다지 고 카르세로지 딱봐 안주라메베 그랑이 레베세나 텐데 말에 대인도다 고 카르세나 대승부도 로탄다베 테네 잠나티 샤탄 사민 두이너스 지디다 칸다 고직 사겐리레 힌들라 ngatsotene metawa le ongu yore ti ti metawa tela ngatso karsa metawa gomba seyaji bene ta jachesa ta ti chi metawa na metala sowa tene husimbares.
So the first of these 4 thoughts are the rarity of achieving a precious human rebirth complete with the 18 leisures and endowments. And then once we've contemplated that, then we don't just leave it at that. We move into the second contemplation, which is the contemplation of the truth of impermanence. Because once we have understood how rare and precious it is to have this human life, and how difficult it is to achieve, then, that's not it. There's also the fact that, it isn't unchanging. This life isn't stable. It's impermanent. It's subject to change. We will inevitably die. There's no telling when we will die. And so that leads to the need for the second contemplation, which is the contemplation of the truth of impermanence and death. And so, as is often said, year by year, month by month, moment by moment, the truth of impermanence is always displaying itself, and the inevitability of our demise is getting closer and closer. This life is just becoming exhausted, moment by moment, year by year, month by month, moment by moment. So we have already been through, in the Ngundro program, or the 3-year program, we've already been through the contemplation on the difficulty of achieving a precious human birth with leisures and endowments. We also went through the section on contemplating death and impermanence. and within the contemplation of death and impermanence, there are the different categories. So there's like the impermanence, reflecting on the impermanence of the outer environment, reflecting on the impermanence of, our very bodies. So the outer and inner levels of impermanence.
Impermanent the hakone da karchigur da labdu da nga zo kartang gewe kile megewe kile labna de yang mena yang da ji dewa tobya ke ju khari imba ji dungar pangona dungar jungkhong khari imba yang mena tene nga zo sonam kile tha sonam mai bile se da khanda yang da nga zo hepta ji husimbares.
And then, having reflected on impermanence, then that leads to the third contemplation, or the third of the four thoughts that turn the mind. Because once we know, how precious this opportunity as a human being is, and then secondly, once we're really convinced about like the inevitability of death and just how pervasive impermanence is, then what do we do with that? So then what we do is we say, okay, we have to make this life as meaningful as possible. So the way to make this life as meaningful and as possible is to accumulate positive karma and to avoid accumulating negative karma. So that leads then to the third of the reflections, which is reflecting on the interdependence and truth of karma, cause and effect. So appropriately understanding, what is the true source of happiness, what is the true source of suffering, identifying that as, the deeds of body, speech, and mind that are wholesome in nature or virtuous, and the deeds of body, speech, and mind which are unwholesome in nature or non-virtuous. And so this all of this is involved in contemplating interdependence and karma, cause and effect.
That training that comes habala, tangato tamadre, mondo chi ketini, mondo canone, tamadela. 당아서 대송을 크로아텔라야 되네 직 대와 매와 라와 아래 되는 크로아즈다 제당가 좀 코르데고 요라와 된 코르데가 당아서 뒤지 크로알리 타르토비아가 탑다 되네 지 양면한 코르에 나오는 코르비 이나야 다지 가세고래 코르베키 나네 고직 랭담다 요러와 틴디 요바텔라 테네 다 하고고고요 다 티인두 티 하고와 지발라 다 담보디 ngatsodi 다 가자 개와텔라 제방가서 다 세치마 몽보지 라바리 티네야 다 트랭값 사바 미규 조디 갈세나 세치마 좀단 제운용 그래 세지 요러와 가정다 렌데 나올 몸부 휴버래 다 뒤인데 다 단단가 좋게 지 담봉원에 그지 제와 치마지 요사레 삼바지다 유비기 줌세 지 담보 하고그러와 기시다 하고비나 다 제와 치마지 요사레 삼베테네 다가 줄리 게바드로비아이나 티스 레라론도 와라와 지 게바드로벤 데베테 단다양 고기도 챈들라 고기도 티마치발라 치말라 고기도 삼반다고 지그라와 다 단다 페나차 샤와나 미게반도 임비나 다 단다양 코 미게와 티케 지 네카 다 갈레카고 세나레 틴리 용구요레 터잠 마지비기지 미게완 디기지 주릉보야 저 치마이나야 틴리 강에 되고요사레 마냥송라서 바지엔도고요사레 삼비케 코다 틴리지 로요나 틴리 다 단anga 게바드로비아 서포트 그러와 게바드로토비아 틴리 에너지 누파제 틴리 랩토고요레 틴리 임비 좀 센들레데네 다 담봉가서 지와 같이 되되네 하고고야 개체 모인사레스
And so today we've actually just concluded the last section that we were on, which was interdependence or karma, cause and effect. So today we're beginning the fourth section, or the fourth of the four thoughts that turn the mind, the last of this category of outer preliminaries or common preliminaries, or outer preliminaries. And so this is the contemplation of the defects of cyclic existence or samsara, that once we've contemplated these other three, then it's necessary to reflect on the fact that there's really no true lasting, no lasting and no really true happiness to be found in cyclic existence. And so the word cyclic existence, korwa in samsara, which is korwa in Tibetan, which means samsara. That's how we say samsara in Tibetan, and it literally means like a wheel, or the turning, or cyclic, and that's why, and sometimes it's referred to as sipe korlo, the wheel of existence. And so it's meaning that, there's just this constant turning. We take birth in different forms, going from life to life, and therefore we're always bound by or subject to suffering. And so the objective, once we really understand the lack of satisfaction and true happiness to be found in samsara, then there's the incentive to really get free from the endless rounds of birth and death or cyclic existence altogether. And so there are all of the different, we contemplate the different possibilities of states of existence, the different realms. There's so many different states and possibilities, that beings can be born in samsara, in this, these rounds of birth and death. So it's important to understand that. And then once we really, the first step in this contemplation, the contemplation on the defects of samsara, is to really contemplate reincarnation in such a way that we're really convinced, we really understand, because then that becomes a support to what we have contemplated in the contemplation that just came before, which is karma, cause, and effect. So it becomes a support to our effort at accumulating positive karmic causes and creating positive, karmic situations or conditions. Because, we know we want to be happy. That's not difficult to identify. We have always wanted to be happy. We want to be happy now. We want to be happy in the future, in this life. So if we understand that, we'll continue, beyond this life, then we also realize how important it is to create the causes for happiness in future lives. And so first we contemplate karma, cause, and effect. So there's real feeling of conviction in terms of the benefits of virtue and the harm of non-virtue. And then understanding, really being clear about, on the ongoing cycle of birth and death, future lifetimes, reincarnation. Then we really are motivated even further to secure those positive karmic causes that will lead from happiness to greater happiness in this life and future lives, and with the goal ultimately of freedom from cyclic existence altogether, liberation from suffering or samsara, and full awakening. Oh, so it's not just, we're not just focused on creating causes for our happiness in this life, but in the understanding, in the long run, that what, even if we engage in negativity in this life and we have experience the direct results of that, then understanding, that we'll be reborn in the future. And if we have really negative causes, that can lead to rebirth in really miserable states, like the lower realms, hell realms, and so forth. So in this way, this understanding gives energy, support, and power to our practice of virtue.
어다 디인데 다 단나가서 타마데라 칼세나다 참랭가서 단 지겐디 나오이나 되네 지 칼세보레 지텐기 되지 송도와 지텐베기 되지 다 칼세 superficial 게 되지 용구요래다 딱 바람이 킹가서 디 지텐디 나올디 데베까블라 코베 갈레카보 장장 차디가 말아와 가서 되지 요래 대가나 이타도 몰라고다 대신 주원로 요래 마도야 아직 하라 소발라테네 고 네카블라 고 둥이 요 말아와 틴디 인두 따티 인두 증가 쪽에 개와도 협비게 단 드브 직미야 세나레 가서 뭐 몰라지노 당가 직 토리당 뭐당 하라 소비게 루덴디 토구도 삼바 티니켈로 용거요래와 나초케 테네 지 베는 직텐디케 테네 대치라 나초 차거요래와 텔레 야보츠거요래 틴디 인두다 티기 냠보 더 도버차비 치돌라 제다 직텐케 네캅다 대치지 요래 이내야 다지 갈세거래 다힌 지바세나레 티니 지비나 양다비기 대화직당 대화템보지 요마레 even 베나직 하당 힘이나야 곤조로야 직당 제리 둥가 용구요레 라베다 직시비 대화라 차비기 님보텔라 가르나 거르베 게다 강이 세나리 대고미아트 차디요레스
And so, and then ultimately it's also so then we also contemplate, so reincarnation, the three types of suffering that pervade samsara altogether, and in particular, the suffering of the six states of existence, or the suffering of the six realms. But so we think, even understanding reincarnation, we also can feel, well, life can be good, and there's a lot of happiness and joy to be found, but what we, it's not always difficult. It's not always suffering. There's a lot of joy. There are a lot of good characteristics, to be, or a lot of good conditions to be experienced. But the happiness and joy, the relative level of happiness and joy that can be experienced, in a samsaric sense, is a very superficial level. So it may not seem that way, but it only goes so deep, and it is always subject to change. So no matter what degree of happiness or pleasure or joy that can be found, it's not lasting, it's not permanent, it changes. Even those, there's some really kind of these celestial beings, devas, that have incredible joy and bliss and pleasure that is like we can't even really fully conceive of the level of pleasure that they experience in this worldly realm, in our experience. But even that kind of really ecstatic joy and pleasure of these celestial realms is subject to change. So these devas, it is said, that eventually when their merit runs out, they experience the suffering of change and falling to lower rebirths. So that is also even the highest level of pleasure and joy that we can find in samsara is still not lasting. It's still the nature of suffering because it changes. It eventually turns into suffering. And so and so this contemplation on the defects of samsara is meant to counteract our attachment to worldly happiness, so that we, because we do feel attached to happiness, we want to hang on to that happiness. We're like, oh, it's not so bad. But when we contemplate the defects of samsara, this serves as an antidote to that kind of attachment.
와다 티니다 드링가 저 값 하바텔라 단 드브 텔레테네 단데 다 저런지 로나 데그레스 가서 티셔요와
Chatsang.
당봉고 티티리스 로
So we have these handouts. So this is the first of the materials that you'll receive on the section of contemplating the faults or defects of samsara. And so we have these three categories. One is the reality of past and future lives. Two are the three types of suffering. Oh, okay, thanks. We're going to share. Two are the three types of suffering that characterize samsara, and three are the specific sufferings of the six realms.
좀다 양난가 저 와다 티니다 가서 땡이 라비아티 다 콘큐바나 기리 양면 maybe first you reading session
Me or?
yeah
Oh, okay. The whole thing or what?
maybe first one how is the I don't know
The first paragraph or all of it?
yeah
Okay. So first we have the reality of past and future lives. Most all religions believe in life after death in some form or another. In Buddhism, life after death takes the form of reincarnation. While reincarnation is central to Buddhism, it also appears in various forms in Hinduism, Jainism, some indigenous spiritual traditions, and certain streams of mystical thought within other major religions.
then maybe
Keep going. These days, there are quite a few people, both religious and non-religious, who have come to embrace the idea of reincarnation, and there are many convincing stories and even research that strongly supports it. Some major academic institutions have documented cases of verifiable past life remembrances, such as the University of Virginia, who has conducted research over the course of 50 years and collected over 2,500 cases of reincarnation from all over the world.
오다 티니다 또 가르세나 가서다 ngazo karse gorda ji jiktendi kenan keta jing korwa ta nana khone tene ngazo driba yorwa driba yodita ji yang jewa chima dela ta ngazo 통토 부가 말아와 뭐 통마도 다 지 nga랑 so su이니나 양지 100% 지 자자자 담베게 프루 오 테리샤세야지 다 배는 것도디 직텐데 더위나다 파일 인디아 요래 세야지고 땡야 요러 인디아 제가 텐데 지거래 메텐데 지거래 기텐데 지거래 세야지고 하고서 배는 자가로 있는 것도 프루 치고로 벤 잠블 랭힘바지 요래라 그러와 for example,
Oh, yeah.
jaga yore, jaga se chi yore, ko tene ko kala tindi sagre, ki tindi jagre, ta tindi ko cholo tindi res chi laptop go yore wa. Yene ya ta nga so chi chewa chimala, ta cheta nga so ta chi tundo la so ba thong thu go yore tine ya chi rem tuzo la chewa chime kin dini ji yore, ne tang dini ji yore se ya chi ta da mus nga so ten to ya me du tene nga so ta teleji 이 제토비아로지 가보요레스.
So it is said that, as long as we are samsaric beings or we're born in samsara, then we have obscuration. And we have in particular, like the type of obscuration that prevents us from, really being able to remember much. So we can't remember many of the things even from our childhood, let alone a past life. So we can't see. There are some who have memories from past lives, but most are not able to remember once they've traveled to their next life, or they've migrated to their next incarnation. They can't remember what was their past experience, and it's difficult to, we can't.
That's all because they remember get here your marwa.
It's not even really so much a matter of remembering, but it's really, what's difficult is that we have no direct experience or vision of, the reality of past and future life. So it's difficult to prove. We can't 100% prove.
Or you believe.
And so it's hard for sometimes to trust or believe in that reality because for instance, we can prove something like the fact that India exists, especially these days, obviously, that there's a continent, to the east of us that, and people of this culture who wear this type of clothes and have these types of customs live there. And you can actually go there and see it for yourself and say, oh yeah, okay, this really exists, But we don't have that capacity when it comes to past and future lives or even other realms of existence. And so it becomes something that sometimes is difficult to believe in.
However, this when Sanjay song yorwa, Sanjay song yore, Sanjay ke, Jig Nazata song doa, Tamji chambers, Sungdu, Tene, Jig, Sanjay ke tene, Jig, Jawat Zola Jigstana, Tene Jurura Langtila Hapana Yeres.
Garila?
Jurura, Sena.
Churura?
Jurura, Sena, this the Hinto seat yet, Lapentiliona, that Tongro, so that country do, Kawado, Karedo, Tongro. Tena Yeke, Tene Sanjay Jumden de Lawina, Tene Karsena Jig, Jawa Muti Kanza Jigla, Jawa Mumakasi, Jawa Kasi long beginning, Ta, Mombala Kawa Jigre, to some Hingiyores. Read Yinaya, Tangi Contuana, not ordinary person, how could we go Marwa? That Sanjay Jera to Zonana, Tene, Hipta Triores.
So now the reason we can't perceive these things directly is because of our obscurations. But somebody who has become awakened or attained enlightenment can see clearly and can see directly, like the Buddha. So the Buddha, who is said to have reached the state of complete omniscience, can see perfectly clearly, upon encountering another individual, who they were in any number of past lives, what happened, what specific causes were created that led to specific outcomes and so forth. So it said that, he could see all of that as clearly as holding, the certain type of seeds in the palm of his hand. So just like as clearly as you see, a collection of seeds in the palm of your hand, the Buddha could see with his omniscience, the diversity of like different karmic causes and all of the different, former lives that a particular individual may have had, and also see into the future, what his future lives would be, what his what current causes would lead or ripen into different situations in the future. But as ordinary people, we can't see this, so we don't know.
What you got on it, Sanjay Jibo Mari, Teneta, and the Sanjay Gala, Dajomba, a new Mama John to Yankatene, that comes out Harlan de Batani, Chong Yore, and that's Sanjay Jumdendi to Jibuma, but Handaya and Hayjire. Then that Zodo in Benaya, Chikmuhi, Benetia, Abjala Soba, Tendi Hingi, Yores, Labudua.
So not just the Buddha, but it said that, those who attain the state of or become arhats, they attain the level of an arhat, are also able to see with this kind of clairvoyance that can see back up to 500 lifetimes, the different type of births or situations that a certain individual has been in, or the different reincarnations, and also other types of really highly realized or enlightened beings. Maybe not just during the time of the Buddha, but surely there are such individuals even now, that have these kinds of abilities or powers.
Oda ti indu ta jatang ti indu yin yang ta nga zo tanda di jik le thangbo pa lab gu yuna de ta nga zo jik nyom mongbe ke deba jen lab du nga zo ha ma go du ta nga zo dashi chi gu yo re sanji jumden ne song bar wa sanji jumden ke jewa nga chi la so ba song yo re ti yin yang ta dong yang jik sanji ke kan da wo jik zi chi tindi ma yin ba jik dashi chi ho chirang so de leg bartala ngayega songdwa suji da pe ser hindu leg bartala ngayega ta thambo gon le ji ngera ri ka ro re ji tel la sho chi sho la gwe mes jumsen de tin du ta tindi sanje songbo hirya ka to ne nga to ta thanda ji ngone ji kharse gorda rana sozula inside individually investigating 즉 오늘 요사리다 요사마리 삼바당 대가나 이게 상제 당 장조 선비게다 송샤바 그 송샤바당 대가나 이다 대자 마인비게 즉 ordinary와 다 단답에는 초록당 만데베게 야 직제와 치마요와 다시 책이요를 프로브 책이요와 다서 가사 갈래가 좋더니 제 집이나 되네 타마데 오다 때나 제와 치마지 요사리 선비테네 가서 So,
for people like us, who are ordinary beings, beginners on the path, and we have really strong obscurations, strong karma, obscurations of karma and afflictive emotions, and so we can't see with the clarity and direct vision of the Buddha, but we can investigate and decide what we really think based on our own logical examination. And in fact, the Buddha encourages us to do that. As the Buddha himself has said, don't just take what I say at face value, but really examine, investigate, see whether it holds up, whether you find it to be really true. Just like a goldsmith tests his gold to make sure that it really is pure gold, by putting it in the fire and really examining whether it is in fact gold, so that he can see for himself if it's gold. And so the Buddha also doesn't encourage us to have blind faith, but to really examine and to think for ourselves and really see whether we find for ourselves his teachings to be true or not. And so when it comes to reincarnation, even though we may not be able to see directly, what our experience may have been in the past, we can investigate, we can look into it, we can study, the different, not even just in the Buddhist tradition, but the different stories, and kind of evidence and possibilities that are out there that kind of, whether we really think that this is true or not, this possibility of past and future lives. And also, just to contemplate, to think about it and see whether or not it really makes sense for us. And then, and then when it's quite certain that, they might really feel like, yeah, this makes the most sense to me. I really find that this is probably, in fact, the case.
요와데다 즉 상제당 장조 선바당 드조송과 마인바 즉 강사 레당보바 게다 직 송바데 나서 삼노 담비나 장리메 바텐데 요레스
Wait, got it?
베나 상제다 장저 선바트 조게다 우니 주그 송향 바테 마인 바라와 테네 직 ordinary person endless.
So there are all of these stories, for instance, in the sutras, or different accounts of highly realized beings having memories of past lives, or being able to predict future lives. Like, of course, all the stories of from the Buddha, and also about his lifetimes, as a bodhisattva prior to becoming enlightened, and different bodhisattvas and so forth. But there's also a lot of just like completely ordinary people, also non-religious, who there are these very convincing accounts, of their memories of past lives, or certain things that line up and confirm, certain details about their past lives, and so there's actually quite a lot that supports the reality of reincarnation.
이네야다 드린 값사바텔라 딱 나랑기 지 갈색거래 make 통 대화 나랑단 대화요와 틴디게 다 종인지 효기 지어가지요바.
But regarding this, Drupon Rinpoche says he has two experiences that are, they kind of line up, that for him really confirm the reality of reincarnation, two specific kind of stories that he has.
다 잭디 가레슬라비나다 코랑 다 텐다 딜루주 다 마체지 히가 좀 캠보 몰람 노아 텐다 다 로치스터 white lotus 되네 라마치네 데기오레스.
So first one, he thinks he's shared with some of you before, and many of you know the person that is involved. So Khenpo Monlam, he's been here before. He's currently the resident teacher at a Dharma center in Rochester, White Lotus Society, I think it's called, or White Lotus Buddhist Center in Rochester. And so many of you have met him, and Drupon La has known him since he was a child in Tibet.
다티 카레스 라비나 다 코랑 다 reincarnation 차디오레스.
And it's they all many are in agreement that he is the reincarnation of somebody else that they all knew.
다단 캠부 몰람 그 previous life 와. 다티 페체 직지나 코랑 로직 치요사리 직지나 단인이 로수 직바인사레스. 인타 가서데 데사데 코랑소 룽바 리직 야블라 데그레 가서 리직 surjola 데기오레스.
So previous life Chirangdang Lo Drawore.
기바라와.
Yeah. So the person who Khenpo Monlam was before he was born now, and became later Khenpo Monlam, in his previous life, that person was the same age as Drupon Rinpoche, and from the same region. They were, kind of like a mountain away. So he lived with a family that was kind of behind a mountain that was just near Drupon Rinpoche's family home.
But here, this Florida is not good examples, mountain, But the Tibetan mountain is like a bit higher, like a deep, so like but we take care of the sheep, daytime, so he's coming other side the mountain.
They both took care of the sheep at the same time. So this young boy would come with his sheep, and Drupon La would also go out with his sheep. So they would often meet in the mountains.
Yeah, together. Also, this kind of, I don't know, related or not. So this, the sheep is amazing, So I think he has maybe, I don't know, maybe maybe 200 hips. I have similar. So then, the daytime, right? So all the hips mix. Like we completely, mix like 400 sheep together, eating together, like this. And we cannot separate, like impossible, But amazing thing is, like evening comes, so then we make noisy, Then this make like something make noisy, like what the slingshot, right? Slingshot.
I think so, yeah.
I think so. So you don't know what means.
Yeah, no, the one, well, a slingshot is something that you go like
Not
this.
like that.
Yeah.
What they call it? Whipping, make noisy.
Like a lasso, kind of, like a,
Not
like a,
lasso either. Whipping, yeah, whipping. Like
Yeah, it
they
is
make
like
noisy like that, right? And then they automatically like they themselves are separated. So this his sheep, so his mountain all that day. My sheep and goats too. So goat sheep is mixed too, So my sheep is my side, like
so they would
probably
hear the
like
sound
like 10.
that
I don't know,
indicated-
10, 20 minutes. 100% they naturally they separate. We cannot make separate at all. But if we do kind of daytime make separate, it's like maybe 10 people try to make separate, but impossible, or mix everywhere, But so that's the side. Tindi da ko tindi ship telatini ta tagyoro lok tagyores.
So this previous incarnation of Kimbal Nam, he was also looking after sheep, just like Drupon La. They were similar age.
Inda ko je karse gore sadly, accidentally, rawa. Tindi je latini koran soda ngaso tiri tini da te yor da saya ji ngaso lunch box log do la ngaso thanda ina tini leka lenya to da lunch sagyor wa kala sagyores.
So there was a very tragic accident where, so when the sheep herder, it was when they would go out into the mountains, they would bring like a packed lunch and they would sit and like have their lunch.
Tini sa dewe kabla tini koran ke sister yore te mai ba tini yang pomoji yore koran so som ro yosare tini koran hip sa dewe kabla Inta koran so karma yosaro lenda ojela tini ta chote yutu
No, go ahead, dig it.
ya tini khala sa dewe kabla tini ko tobja gi oh tini o nget lok to kawan rog do ta go no ojela tini koran jok sons.
So this boy, they do loga tere.
Tate ha ko lo.
So he's not sure how old he was at the time, but he was there, eating lunch. There were two others with him.
Sister actually, yeah.
One of Drupon's relatives
No,
or
no.
cousin, or his cousin.
Yeah, his sister,
and his sister, two girls. And they were eating, they were relaxing and eating lunch during their break. And then suddenly, it's almost like it's like his karma, you can see the kind of the karma there. He suddenly thought, oh, I have to go check on the sheep. And so he ran off.
Tine kon jobo jog ne tine ti gabla tine doji ri ne kon ti kala tap dong ko kan dele jaw yoris. Del tan make so that.
And so, that's all.
Yeah.
And so then he started he ran off, and as he was running,
Yes, he walk, so the look at the hips,
Oh, he was walking, so he wasn't running. And then a rock fell from above, from the mountain above, and hit him on the head.
I think this side here. So they killed him.
And killed him instantly.
The ta reincarnation Kemborawa. Kembo molam chadi yoris.
But then he was reincarnated, they believe, as the person who is now Kimbal Nam.
Ta korang ke labyala ta kari chung song happened. Ta tega na yi ta korang ka pa su yin ba ta ma su yin ba ta. Tine sister sama tine pe se o ti yi to ku yoris.
Because he remembered very clearly at a young age, Kimbal Nam. He remembered what happened. He was able to explain what happened. He remembered his mother. He remembered his father. He remembered his family from a past life and was able to explain this to his current family. That this is what happened. This is who I was before. This was my family.
Tiga na yita korang ko sheep take care chibi kabla tene chi samsang la kale yore samsang chibo yore wa to samma tene yeg yores.
And he spoke of being a shepherd, tending the sheep and how he tended the sheep. And sometimes it was really fun, but sometimes it was really hard.
So he's telling this kind of past life, not
So he was telling in his current life as a small boy, what had happened in his past life.
that tiga na yi not only that, wa. Tene korang hansa chembo yores but the birthmark la do ting song. Dela ko exactly tele tene chembo ji yores.
And not only that, but he had a big birthmark right in the spot where he had been hit by the rock. And still has to this day, right? Tata layang or me bacha songhe. Tata layang yorebe.
that he don't kira mangbo la gudo.
Yeah.
O ta te di yore, o ta te
Tata yorebe.
tata yomare.
Oh, okay. Well, it sort of disappeared over time, but he
No,
did.
not or despair.
Oh, okay. Tene gare.
Yine da di nga zo di danda di it's another story wa di kon lama ji yore lama ti ki ko di the birthmark ro the surgery no chi do lama lo gung sang la do lo gung sang mo chi. Tene ti chi bere sina ti chi ne tene ko ti stand up ko ma de wa obstacle ro yo sara wa. This kale kha yo sara sina khanda ya ta tene race ta ti ko no related wa ina.
So then there was another person that he knew of, Lo Kunzang Rinpoche, who also had a really clear birthmark that was connected with how.
No, three mare.
Look at it.
Tik ko surgery no chi oro te kembo molam tene te birthmark ko song race.
Oh, Kong Kimbo Monlam. So Lo Kunzang Rinpoche Kimbo Monlam gi birthmark ko yorebe.
Really?
Oh, sorry. Okay, totally had that wrong. So Lo Kunzang Rinpoche actually removed Kimbo Monlam's birthmark. So so that he no longer has the birthmark.
Right. Well, that the story check this, wa. Ina that the not exactly sure, but ina yang samre nga zo da ji jewa ya to zo mongbo chek la yang ji pena accident do la ji chorwa hyo chenbo yo wa. Tindi la chek china ko lamsang jewa leng yo na de khari na yang khani na tni chek china ko jewa sebo yo sa de do tinde. Think those that's just my guessing,
So then in general, actually also, and this is actually, I would like to just add, because when we were preparing for this, I was doing a little bit of research of different reincarnation stories, and these stories, for instance, or the studies that they did at University of Virginia, a lot of them involve birthmarks. So a similar thing that the stories of people remembering their lives and remembering how they died, and often in accident situations, there were birthmarks associated that were very similar to the mark, that they had experienced, that, or kind of matched up to how they had died. And so now what Drupon Rinpoche is saying, that also he thinks that what he's seen and found is that very often is the case that somebody who dies in a situation of an accident, like a sudden death or kind of traumatic death, that somehow that seems to trigger a stronger memory for the person about their past life, when they are reborn, even if it isn't that they've been born immediately afterwards, even if in the interim they experienced something else or their consciousness was
not 100%.
Yeah, so it's not 100%, but he thinks that that's, that there's some connection there.
Da himbajik yores, himbajik do chen da nga zo lungba rang le tene yang pomoji yores, pomode exactly nga rang ke ta lo su jikwa wa. Lo jikwa re tene nga zo ta nyam tun do wa re ya nam nyam tun do ne tene da tanda di nga zo mote na lan do tene motati kota te ka absent do chet down do cha accident ro ti ka la morang hibares
Da yore. Chi nyam yu mara.
이거 다 냠들이 이나 다 모자직 나 요 말와
Oh, okay. So then there's another story. There was a girl that Drupon Rinpoche was very close with as a child, and they were, they spent a lot of time together. And one time they were traveling like in caravan, a bunch of people to Lhasa, and they weren't in the same car, but her car was in an accident, and she died in that accident.
티니다 티가블라다 나랑 오네 직다 모란로자 티네 모란케 풍보여와 풍보도 참마키 야 다티디 고 액시던트 착사데 타녀고 말와 다른 보레스 티니다 키 참마 테케어치 티네 풍보도 졸라 가서 투투라지야 모람자야 티네 치빈스.
And so he was very involved, when she died, he helped, to carry her body back home.
Rita back tomro namarang mare.
Yeah, so back to the nearby village, which was very far away, and then also took care to do all, make sure all of the necessary rituals were done, and the prayers, and was really involved in her transition when she died, or after she died.
이나야 다 디가블라 카르치요르세나 되네 다 제탕가서 데라 화돌라 49 days 라그로와다 가서 야고십 히르글라 longest day grace 숭고요르와 티니다 나랑케 직니마 딱바람키 몰람로자 나랑케다 카르세거 planning 세나레 직다 49 days 티니제 키테네 직다 냠네 치야 이나다 디냠도야 뭐지랑 뭐라지고 말에 뭐 힘바지 통요르와 대응하랑 best friend 오차디요레스 이내야다 디 몰람똥요레 몰람똥도 배제다 향마 니슈 세사레 정다 노래킨 잡리호르베네 텐디제라테네 나랑게 출반도 오제네 테네다 지금 요반도 오지 텐디 소송스.
And so in the Tibetan tradition, when somebody dies, there is this, the belief is that then the consciousness is in the bardo, in the intermediate state for a time, and that the longest period of time that the consciousness might be in the bardo is 49 days at the most. So Drupon Rinpoche was really committed to doing prayers and practice, every day, and especially like on the important days, within those 49 days, and keeping track, of how many days had gone by and everything. And it wasn't just this girl who had died, but also his best friend, Drupon Rinpoche's best friend, was also in that accident and had died. But after 20 days, within that period of 49 days, and Drupon Rinpoche was practicing, and he had this feeling like, okay, it's okay now.
근데 이네 다 단단한 좋게 나가나 되네. 양다 복제여와. 되네. 대지에네 다 지어와데 고세오 라부여데 대미치 발라양 되네. 지금 나랑게 맹도 티리오다 저런 대트리만도 송선당 가서 롱바지여데 롱바티 퍼티니야. 다그 원에 지난 뭐 상고랑 가서 대사 차여러 봐. 근데 마이바 되네 가서 액시던트 착색 사자 되네마. 되네 다 가서 롱바텔은 로송스. Tene korang amezal jog law songs.
Kunda tesi yaboko masong so de pugu che yore metsang. Chirangi nangla.
Inta ko jedu di karla gu yore lamna. Tene korang ke tene onga tene ta ningbu ke ndran roll up songs korang amezal roll up songs. Sajatiniya, sajata ringzane tini teran roll up songs. Accident saja chaksa yorwa.
Re, ina yang dila.
Ota ngek tini lab gdos konak kia yegro jeli. So tini konak amezala jog lab gdos.
So Okay, I think I'm understanding. You can tell me if I'm not. But so then at this time, somebody in his family had a child. But it sounds like the child was actually born not like in their village, but in the place that was near where the accident happened. Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
And-
child is the born, so maybe I don't know 2 years later. So then he kind of telling the story, right?
Oh,
So-
the child told this story.
Right.
Okay. After 2 years after, no, so there was a child that was born into Drupon's family. And then the child 2 years later, when he was like
But he
2 years
spoke basically
old,
whatever, I'm not
right,
sure
or
exactly.
2 or 3, he started saying, "Gare lakir."
어떻게 네 그때네 아메달 조글라송 사찬데 사찬딩가 또 사찬 대사지 여러와. 테네 마타 저런데 마 조글라송.
So he told Drupon to go to the place where his mother was that was, and
Yeah,
that was close to the accident.
not from the accident.
Can you
Basically.
do bouquet love or Inji love? I think it's better if he says in English because I'm.
Right, so there he talking
Yeah.
about, basically, so this, my name is, that name is the Ningbo, So the Ningbo told me to go give
Oh.
the direction to his mom. So there, whatever situation, this lot of stories, whatever his name, he knows the, family, area, but specific thing is, so actually he told, I give the direction, go to the mom. But, how goes on?
Do you guys understand?
Right? Yeah, he's, amala. So this, the child, right, speaking. So, so his reincarnation. So he tell to, whatever he telling. So I give you the direction to go, okay, this place, this village.
Oh, now I get
so
it.
then
Okay,
go
so
to
he's
the
saying
mom.
that Ningpo gave his mom, or gave him directions of how to go to his mom, meaning
Yeah,
how to
the
enter
village.
the womb of his current mother, right?
Yeah.
So he said, go to, the child was saying, oh, it was Ningpo who told me where to go, basically. Basically, like he was identifying that Drupon led his consciousness to his current mother.
So that got under your is the Mr. Korabe, Lossom Chosom de Tene, that Omzi Tonta, and the education of your is.
So actually, this child is still, he's doing very well. He stayed and he studied, he's a monk, I guess,
Yeah.
right? And he did 3-year retreat and completed all of his studies. He was an umze at the monastery, chant leader, Gare de Bula,
Yeah.
at his monastery in Tibet.
Okay. That the Indu Dak to Karsananga to the Tazam Korga, check down, Tigana Yigita, Nato Samre, that Misha Song Labdutine, and that is a Motango Yosare, not to make Hibanagi, Tindi Mayimba, Tine, Javachimatin Yosare, Tinta, particular not to Nambanda Wimbina, Shetsavi Jela. Tene that time continue na gidi 49 days. Monom jaya andamanda yori. Tene particular chik dunta relation do monom jaya yori. Tiga hin te hindu tene karse gore the lomchu zidu yang lo takwala ko tene monom jaya yori. Ina yang tako. Tu June de tene jig pamanda wo tene thong sim bana sul gawo love so thong bina tene nga so jig gawa drop e kabla tele dedication chiga ro tene go yo sares
And so, in any case, there's, like, at least in the Buddhist tradition, there's total conviction in reincarnation, that, there's no, it's really the most logical explanation. And there isn't, they really feel how could it be that, when you die, the consciousness is just extinguished, like the extinguishing, a fire. It doesn't just stop. And based on the understanding of karma, cause and effect, then reincarnation really makes a lot of sense when you start to think about it. And in particular also, there is then, of course, this concept of the intermediate state after you die, the bardo, which can last at most, as he said, 49 days. And then so it becomes very important, for instance, to help the consciousness who is transitioned during that period of the 49 days, and in particular, like each week becomes like an important day of kind of passage for the consciousness of the one who is deceased. And so for loved ones and practitioners, to support them through practice, and especially reciting prayers at that time. And, for, especially those who are close, like parents, loved ones, to practice virtue on behalf of the person who has died, to do dedication prayers and so forth.
Lo sona lo la tene chowa puya ina tu jun de tene je tela molam dang ngaso gewa do yu na gewa kitene ngowa cheya ta ke chembures.
And so in particular, there's the concept that, you never forget the person who has passed, like even beyond those 49 days, like even year after year, continuing to kind of do dedication for them and to practice, make offerings on their behalf, to practice virtue, that continues to bring benefit to the person who has died.
Offering
Lao Yin.
choba pula go.
Chupa Bu Lao Yin. Making offerings.
Oda tere sta tini da di tere ta ne malo khande meskum mekhim belo na de.
So maybe would somebody else like to pick up where we left off? So it's the third paragraph here.
I can read.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Thank you. There's someone online?
Yeah. There are many stories of lamas and past masters throughout the history of Tibet who have demonstrated the ability to predict their future incarnations and reveal precise details about where and when they would be born in their next life. Likewise, there have been countless great masters who were able to recognize sacred objects and cherished ritual items from their former incarnation, as well as certain individuals they knew in their past life.
Maybe the Dinidi Dadung, keep going.
Kamalo.
Yeah, so you can did Sangmala.
Ta lo lo ka ji chom.
Yeah. So maybe the next two paragraphs. Alana, you want to just keep
yes.
going?
There are also common occurrences of children in Tibet and India who were not lamas but have specific memories about their former lives, many of whom were even able to recognize their parents for their past life.
Or from, sorry, meant to be from. Yeah.
There was one such story recounted in the Indian news about a child who kept insisting to his current parents that they weren't actually his parents. He told them he had different parents who owned a restaurant where they made momos. The Indian parents did not know what momos were. The child described the restaurant in great detail, and when the parents were able to track it down, they took the child there. The child immediately recognized his former parents, who, as it turned out, had a child who had died before this child was born.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone?
Would someone else like to read? Thanks, Beverly. Maybe you want to just read the rest of it?
I can read.
But we have, oh, yeah, Beverly will read.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. So Lisa, you can go ahead and read then.
Yeah, push or maybe no better.
Thank you. In both Buddhist and Hindu cultures, belief in reincarnation is considered to be very logical. It seems illogical to assume that the consciousness would just be snuffed out at death, like extinguishing a fire. Surely something must continue on, and the logical continuation would be a rebirth determined by karmic causes and conditions. There are numerous accounts in the sutras where the Buddha recounts specific details from his past lives as a bodhisattva before his enlightenment. Similarly, he often explains the karmic causes from previous lives that led to particular circumstances in the lives of his disciples. The Buddha illuminates both negative karmic causes, as in the case of his malevolent cousin, Devadatta, and positive karmic causes, such as those that enable many of his followers to attain arhatship. The sutras also describe instances where arhats, including the Buddha's foremost discipline, Moggama, would journey to the other realms and interact with beings who had taken rebirth there. Continue.
Okay.
Stop.
Yeah, continue. That's
Okay.
okay.
With past and future lives, the core of Buddhist thought, the understanding that this endless cycle of birth and death brings suffering, gives this life a clear purpose, awakening and securing a favorable rebirth. If we don't achieve liberation in this lifetime or take rebirth in a pure Buddha field, our karma will determine our next rebirth within samsara. A favorable rebirth will allow us to continue our path toward awakening, eventually finding freedom from suffering and the cycle of rebirth altogether.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So now, if you have some comments or questions, so please.
I have a quick question from online.
Okay.
Is it okay if I go?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the teaching. So when an individual, like you mentioned, Drupon, has an awareness of the reincarnation, but they're not necessarily feeling like they want to go to a monastery and become a monk or a nun, what are the recommendations for individuals like that in Tibetan culture? Like, what do they actually do once they have some awareness of the reincarnation?
I'm sorry. Can you just say that one more time? I'm sorry, David.
Yeah, no worries, Virginia. And my question wasn't very clear. My question is that if an individual, like Drupon mentioned, has an awareness that they are reincarnate and they can remember their past life, but they don't necessarily feel called to become a monk or a nun, what usually happens with those individuals? They're just sort of aware of that.
So are you saying like if they have a memory of their past life, like being a monastic or being a lama or something like that? Yeah. Okay.
Right. And then what do they do with that? Is it just something they're aware of and they just go on through life, or is there anything else that occurs with those individuals?
I think that's a good question. So my view or whatever, reincarnation maimba ta suji yomares. Some of those.
Reincarnation mayimba suji yomare.
Yeah.
But kongare lagyo bachi kogune.
Okay.
So first of all, so he says that he doesn't think there is anyone who is not a reincarnation.
The reincarnation, I think this kind of based on the Tibet tradition, I don't know. Or reincarnation, lama samgu yorowa, that is big mystic doing service.
And actually, he thinks that that it's kind of a mistake, this system of the Tibetan, the Tibetan culture of saying, oh, this is a
reincarnation is
reincarnation.
Lama, right?
That the only reincarnations that are recognized are like these reincarnations of lamas or people who are like given titles as lamas.
Yina yata Koran koshon te sare zamgudo. Tenu ta karsena ngaso tsama jewa lengi yore, tande jewa lengi yore, maomba tadung jewa lengu yore wa. Tenu ta ti chitana cho gomba lando, ta gomba jibo maina tawa ane jibo maina ta gewa drop na ta ko yarndo growa be ya bores. Yina yang ko tin jik meni ko reincarnation yimba jikla, tene 지 양 원발란도 거야 라마차 거야 텐데 요말와.
So and he thinks that if somebody like even if they remember yini kong saying ngoma lama yemba dawo sam ringiona meche garsi pena chewa ngoma lama. Okay, so and maybe in the case of someone who might remember their past life, like, and no, it's not necessary that they need to like join a monastery or become a monk or a nun. There's so many different ways to continue in the practice of virtue. So the most important thing is to apply oneself in, the practice of virtue, even, if they do sort of have memories of being a reincarnation of a lama.
Not lama.
Not lama la yoroa lama.
Tate lama jilke chengdo.
Okay, yeah, so not lama, he said, but just remembering that they're a reincarnation.
Tene ta lama yin lamna te terwada lama sena nga lama yin lamna pendo hakong marwa. Yine ya ta ji gombando organization do lama ji ke chora lama re lavina. Tene ko langa ji tengirwa ko gombando ko ya lotonchi ko ya ko lame ki job ji yorwa.
And it's not actually just like somebody can't sort of be like, oh, I have a memory of being a lama in a past life, like I must be this reincarnation of a lama. It's not up to them to be the one to recognize that. It would have to be that the monastery or a lama recognizes them and then gives them a position, and then they're usually told, to go to this or that monastery and to do this or that path of training.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I well understand that continuing our own practices as bodhisattvas, including Mahamudra, can result in the possibility of a favorable rebirth. But I'm interested in the possibility of attaining more awareness of past life or future lives through some forms of meditative concentration or dream yoga, which I've had some practice of, but not much. But those practices have led to fleeting experiences of like catching the tail of a former self. And I'm wondering if you know of any other specific practices that people have enacted that lead to more awareness of past and future lives.
Kini Koran kita je thang jiti nyamlen china lapgo sarare.
So chitang nyamling china kong hako gyore ke chesho pena chaje chimbo dawo gomya dang ti chakchin langa china ke chimbo re yini yang kong gi mupala nune pena tse nguma yang jin tuna tes mupa chimbo yorwa tene de stint ko nyong yore de pena yang mixer ki samten dawo re che yojide de jewa ngoma hakoya gi chidu yang na pena de milam de chudo nang la milam yorwa dene milam yang nyamlin chine dene chi china tes se ngoma yang tes jin tu bagi koka dene kong yang milam nang la nyamyong jung yo nyong yore de pena de chatsang tong ma tu ba yena yang tes tong tu ba nang shin
오다 저런 라바나 이리 무소소게 참내 단다 공티와 나 이리 제고 철반라고 다 물랑라고 용구요레스 다들 제기로 와.
So in general, kind of like you're indicating, it's possible, some people can have sort of like general feeling of, oh, I think maybe, something, that they sort of feel, or also things that might happen in dreams.
대가 나 있다. 제가 저다 참래 가서다 희네 개땜바 톱나 그 정도와 되네. 가르쳐야 되리. 대세 메토비 기념 정도 되네. 직세비 기념도 졸라 되네. 야보 하루이나 되네요. 고직 제와 같이 통토비야. 렌데 가르쳐거다. 직
And also as you also mentioned, so there's sometimes the case where someone who has very, very developed shamatha practice and reaches a really deep state of stability and meditative absorption. So there are the experiences of shamatha, of bliss, clarity, and non-thought. And one category of the experiences of clarity is that sometimes the practitioner will be able to see or recollect former lives, their past lives and what happened in their past lives and certain kind of things regarding, karma in that way. So that is also something that can happen.
Of course, 다 똑반 통보 yarle angbo kabla tene 똑반 namka 외장 또 레준리 확지 외장셰 송도와 tene 똑반 통보 렙도 tene 다직 렌데 당 제와 같이 또 sommo 탈라메 통고요 사례 자리서 뭐 똑반 거네 제나.
And then also, and then of course, if one really develops Mahamudra, then with a very, very high level of realization like that, then of course there comes certain levels of clairvoyance, the ability to remember past lives, to see into the future, to kind of see with greater detail the interconnectedness and karma cause and effect.
인다 테러와 렌데 통나 되네. 땅아서 roughly 렌데 통고 요리 티나야다. 저 체효데 가서 delusion 카르차르는 렌데 티케 다직 rob라고 있나 직 가서 조지나 디파 요레라고 삼고 요르와. 이는 렌데 티 힙타데 다다 나가서 직 통토비아다 백하고로와. 티네 렌데 힙타 통나 되네 가서 다 람가르 베데 킬러 파 차사로와. 테인디티네 다티
람가 clear path 차기래 간네.
계속 똑같지나? 테네 다 가wan로고 가르치고 다 차사하고 그러고. 테마도 다 가서 단다지 고지 추 계속 추 로비나야 다동 지 야고 간데스 때는 간데도 위해라 한거 줘야요 말봐.
So in general, when one's ability to see kind of with greater detail the intricacy of cause and effect, and then, and essentially like there's less delusion in the mind. So ordinarily when our understanding of cause and effect is very coarse level, so we can like say, oh yeah, like there's non-virtue and like, like to kill is non-virtue that leads to suffering. But someone who has like direct insight into karma cause and effect, their path becomes very clear because they can see, what will lead to certain outcomes. And so, what they need to do and what they need to avoid or to go in one direction, not another direction becomes very clear because they're seeing with more clarity cause and effect. And so, so with that kind of vision, it becomes very easy to practice the Dharma.
다 단다된 가서 팀이 나오지로 고초야 히라 요 말이 가서는 고초야 메조데 데려와 대 아멘디위와 하고도 아멘디위 미바탕라 밀라마미다 세야데 하고요 데 행동 아마지 요래서와 맹고
Oh yeah.
다 하고도 잖아 호텔라 데
No, tene de yaboko masong shinto am yore tene.
다 암들라 다 어리 어저 파다나 랩과 미 하고도 다 미요사리 섬에 아직 요레스 파치로라 따나 티야 미요레스 제그와 티네 야 치로라 따디 미요레 섬그리티나야 나라 미요 마레스
Yangna.
데리다 니로와 셰요르 다 미탄다 미요르라 고로와 다 치로라 미요 마레 섬바지요 타데 코카데스 나도 텔라도 자가 찬도 카스 칼라보다 안라프닝로와 samya yore o dembare unwrapping injuries o ya chigla chilo la ta na khaya mi yo mares yi meban ro tongres nga chok yi a na lo mi yo res ta hendo wa amde o ten na yin nga chota geba dubdu geba da confusing samje na geba re geba dubgu yore geba ran res wa samje pata na looks like geba dubgu yore nga rang yore gomja yore ina te geba chaya hawa hira yo mares depending guno den 다 초제도 메게와 사이로와 초지디나 고 파도디 고 메게와 베드고요리 고 메게와 두고요리스 메게와 나라 메게와리스 초지다나 야 칠로zam나 고 메게와리 고 베메시 뇽몽바리 고지 섬그 사메아테니 통세기리디 이나야 고 나라 항상 게와 두고요리스 가테 렌데스야다 카푸이테니 요리스
So otherwise, it's sometimes really difficult to see what is the right path clearly for ourselves and especially for others. So it is often the example of a mango is used, so there, sometimes it might appear that a rainbow is a mango is there are four possibilities, right? Like on the outside, the mango looks ripe, but actually inside it's not ripe. Or on the outside it looks not ripe, but on the inside it's actually ripe. Or on the outside it looks unripe, and on the inside it's actually unripe. Or on the outside it looks ripe, and on the inside it is in fact ripe. So there are all those different possibilities, and when it comes to practicing virtue, it's kind of confusing sometimes, because sometimes what appears to be virtuous in nature, if you look at it in a superficial way, it looks like virtue, but actually maybe it's becoming a condition that actually is the nature of non-virtue because of the impurity of intention, for instance. So like somebody might, look like a Dharma practitioner and have all the right, garb and so forth, and they're reciting mantra and they look like they're really dedicated, but actually there's a really kind of impure motivation there. And so then actually maybe they're really accumulating a lot of, what seems to be virtue, but actually is becoming the nature of non-virtue. And on the other hand, there might be someone that seems like they're really unwholesome in nature. They have a lot of afflictive emotions, but actually on the inside, they really do have a pure motivation, and they are in fact, accumulating a lot of virtue. And, and sometimes it is, as it appears that the virtue is in fact, really powerful in its power of virtue, or the non-virtue is most definitely non-virtue. So there's so many possibilities. It's not so straightforward or black and white. It's difficult to really perceive accurately karma and how and the karma, like what type of karma is really being created.
Tinta kesi tokpachena. Tene tako tahakogoris.
But if somebody has realization, they can see it much more, they can really see these things clearly. And then that person's path becomes very clear. Or the path becomes clear.
Alana has a question online. Alana, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi. Thank you. So I'm asking this question because I have relationships with groups of people that are involved in different kinds of spiritual traditions, and they have some beliefs about reincarnation. And so I would just like to know how this compares to thought in the Buddhist tradition. So I'm wondering if in the Buddhist tradition there's an understanding of, can reincarnation happen into multiple bodies? So can like one consciousness reincarnate into multiple bodies that are separate? And then can reincarnation happen from other births? So maybe not from like direct birth to birth, but maybe it like can skip births. I don't know if that makes sense as a question. I have another question too, but I'll pause there before so you can answer that one, please. Thank you.
So dampo de pena gainsana mo chulo shimba gi ropa mambo yoroa teni kongso yang de chewa napse gi korla samsam la samo tang tang kaka yore teni pena nangbe gi chone pena miche namshi che yang zu kashe kaka la chewa len sigirbe di dampo re teni nipa de samsam la pena lamsang chewa ma len ne pena chewa che ma chene chewa jela che chene.
Yeah, that's good.
Yin sigirebe.
I think that's a good question. Ta karsena tanda di namshi chegla, tu chegla, tine two different body yung tumares.
Yes, so and then I have a question to follow up on his answer, but he said that generally speaking, like one consciousness cannot take birth in more than one body at a time.
Yine yangda sanje tang changjo sembeke ko tuban rawda jesigres. Ina te ko birth mares.
But sometimes you hear, and this is what my question was going to be, is like, but he said, but Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can have more than one emanation.
Not emanation, that tuban or
emanation.
Or manifest or whatever.
So they can manifest, in different forms, more than one form.
For sentient beings.
For the benefit of sentient beings.
Today, I think another question is more on I think this has really happened a lot. Ta chamje gala jewa lentante kandiri la vina ko longest kansa 49 days jewa jik land is the general terwa. Longest tigang in a hine tandarang hine jewa land sigres. Timi hinga hit lamsang pogdwa menga.
So there's also, so then your other question, so generally speaking, sometimes it is said that, so it is generally thought that the longest that a consciousness might stay kind of in the interim or in the bardo is 49 days, and then they have to take birth. But then there are also some who immediately jump into another life form, who from the moment they're died, their consciousness is transferred into another body or into another birth.
Dineta kahila tanda de yorda ngato de something around the some yorda bena accident tini chagrwa accident chadi tanda ngato de la yorda. I think this road too. I think US too. But in Tibet road la lungba je la chama tene saja je gang la pe takwaran accident kandi sabza chin accident chag yore accident chana machine log yorwa. Tindi ka la ta ko the consciousness the stark chade la gudwa pe chik roma towa kawa chagiyuna accident thala chagiyuna sajatiga fecha sajatiga chagiyo sarwa tini chane tini ji gyuringbo jewa ma towa tini di khya tini tega na yita la me chanab jaga dan gadwa oda tini liantugu maying batini stack cha de tini luksu yo sares.
But then to your question about like skipping births, so sometimes it is thought that, especially if death happens in the case of an accident or some sort of tragedy, some sort of traumatic situation, and he said, you know, he interjected this with, in Tibet, there are certain places, and he thinks probably this is also the case here in America, like in Tibet, like certain places in the road, for instance, like on certain routes, there are some places, like on some roads, where there are just always accidents. And very often when an accident happens at that spot, somebody dies. And so often it's the case in those types of places and in those types of situations where the person who dies, their consciousness as a result of the accident gets like kind of trapped for a long time, like sort of stuck at the scene, at the place, you know, the scene of the accident, like in the maybe like cliff face or something like that, that the consciousness gets trapped for a while before it can move on. And actually, I'd like to interject because I had this question. We were just, when we were doing some research about past lives, probably some of you have heard this story about the boy who remembered his life as a World War II fighter pilot. Does anybody know that story? It's an incredible story. I mean, all of this little boy who had like these amazing, very specific details. His parents were from Louisiana. They weren't Christian. I mean, they were Christian. They didn't believe in reincarnation at all. And they became completely convinced based on the experience with their little boy. But what I asked Drupon when we were watching this, because the boy was born like 50 years later as this American boy, but he remembered his life as somebody who died in 1945. So I was like, did he like take birth as an animal first and then like take birth as like this little boy? And Drupon said, no, he probably didn't, because if he had taken birth as an animal, he would have forgotten, So he said probably what happened is his consciousness was stuck, at the like scene of the accident for all that time before he took birth. And the boy was having, part of how they knew this was because he was having nightmares about being trapped in a plane that had been hit and was on fire and was like trying to get out. So it indicated like this level of trauma, right? So anyway, that's just to sort of also back up what he was saying about the consciousness potentially getting stuck somewhere for a while before taking birth again.
That is another question not related, but the question why 가르친 것이 배제와 이 토구요래 것이 제와 이 토구요 말에 가르에서 question 중인 거로와. 다 땡가서 제외 화르추소나 제와 말 이 토구 말에 랍도와.
Oh, okay. So then there's the other question of like, why do some people remember their past lives and some people have no recollection? So this is also what he was, what I was just saying now is that if there's a birth, usually if there's a birth between births, then they're not going to remember, their past life. Like to remember would require kind of like it being the next birth.
Okay, so you have more questions?
I think Nicole has a question online. If you want to unmute.
Sure. I also know, Alana, did you have more questions? Or
I had one more question, but maybe I'll save it. I'll ask it in a future meeting. So why don't you go ahead?
It's okay. He said, Alana, go ahead and ask the follow-up for your question.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So another question related to like the beliefs of different communities. So in like this one spiritual tradition, for example, they believe that there are beings that like devas, they're like celestial beings. And, these beings are like bodhisattvas. They help people, they heal people, they, do good work. But they're believed to be immortal. And so I'm wondering, like, so, the people in these traditions, they refer to these beings as immortal beings. But my understanding based on the Buddhist tradition is that there's no such thing as immortality for beings in conditioned existence. So I'm wondering, like, how, and I know it's kind of vague because, I know it's a kind of a vague in terms of what I'm referencing, but I'm wondering, like, how might one conceive of that belief in a different system? Like, how to, like, are they just incorrect about the fact that these beings are immortal, or because these beings are bodhisattvas, they actually are in some way not a part of cyclic existence, and they emanate in these forms to help people? Does that make sense as a question?
The
The pena dinna the chuluk shimba nangla the samsana pena la mimayam yorwa dene dito mimayan dito samsana jangjub simba drawore pe hansaya rokba chegere dene yang nupa mixel yang the pena mi de nagi yona kongso draya ki chidu mixel gi nupa yore la sopa dene kongso latang dito ge la yang na dinna de mimayan gi rek dito Gaduyana shigio mare, kongso gaduyana yore, immortal kare bahako biobe. Deni yeni yang mo ge samo tangne de nangbe gi chulo la dena suyang shiwa meba nangshin yo marawa rek garayana da. Deni yeni yang kongso gi samlo tang rawo de pena nangba dang laptang rawo yorebe pena kongso jangchub semba yang shia meba rawo yorebe. Yang na de gande yang sigre.
다 단다 딜레직 도와가서 다 텐디로다 유세그레스. 와. 요그레 이나 콘솔레이트 해야요레스.
Okay. So first of all, like definitely there, according to Buddhist thought, there can be like these celestial beings, devas, other types of non-human beings, of like the type that you're explaining, but many of them, but they do eventually also transition from that life form.
테니 땅가서디 베나차샤비나 카두이나 드라버로 랩롱로와 이나 로트줄라 코란데 가서 기지 단데 가서 기지 컨텐츠야 밀렌 툴렌 게차 요마리스 또 beyond.
And in fact, like often like devas or celestial beings in general are said to live extraordinarily long lifespans. Like meaning there's like a whole way of sort of calculating,
We calculate human beings cannot calculate.
Human beings can't calculate because the time period is so immense, like millions and trillions of times our own lifespan. Yeah.
tene 다 기타 다 더서 이 인지레스 대화 유지레스 인다 창조업 선바 더서 다직 삼신도 제와 해송 거와 다 텐데디 직 당보 갈스나 nga 조게 랑라야 다 갈성 코르발레 탈산 스타스 창조업 선바 차다 디게 직 누자 텐레데 텐디텔다 고 갈세고레 다 텐이다 요르와인다 다 대화도서 인지 말했어.
So now what you said about like bodhisattvas or enlightened beings, like that's something different. Like they can manifest, according to the needs of beings in all sorts of different forms and manifestations. So you could essentially say that these are like immortal beings, but it's more like they're manifestations of enlightened activity to achieve the benefit of beings, or to tame beings, to guide beings, but it's actual, the energy of a bodhisattva or the manifestation or emanation of a bodhisattva. So it isn't, but those aren't celestial beings. So celestial beings are devas, as you said. their lifespans are finite, but they're still like very, very, very long life periods.
제가 나 이따
lifespans.
되는 뭐 나오나 펜토 토구요레스 라투 그가서 펜토 구요레스.
And the
맞아, 저거
devas and celestial beings, they definitely can benefit human beings and help human beings and heal human beings. All
Yeah,
there's
human
that
beings that
capacity.
request the offering so on.
And especially when there's a connection there with the human beings and they make offerings and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, I think now, Nicole, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Thank you, Drupon and Virginia, for the teachings. I'm also just feeling very grateful to be a part of this program and for the teachings every week. So I just wanted to express my gratitude. And my question is around ancestors and like how Buddhism thinks about ancestors and like praying to the spirit of ancestors, as well as like family or friends even that have passed away like 3 years ago, and the feeling of being visited by spirit. Like how is that, or consciousness? How is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of my question. I don't know how to end it.
Thank you.
Ancestor gande imba hakogire.
고도.
Hakogire wa.
제가
Tini ngacho gi lukso la gande re ngacho kongso la yang drawa da dung zoya kongso la sowa tak ya yore be pena lukso kashe la yang jage re la pe yo sarwa. Tini de cheya yore be tini kongso yang drawa da dung pena yang miche karsi ngacho ki mitsang na nga lo sung gi ngona me che chongba yemba da dung drawa yore be da dung chi cheya yore be.
이네다 the 소르바자가 요 말이스.
So when it comes in the Buddhist way of thought, we don't supplicate our ancestors or pray to our ancestors.
제가 너기다 나초케 ancestor라 그냥 가르스나 나초케 개와지 향조 dedication 지하요레스.
But we can benefit our ancestors through the power of our own prayer and through the power of dedication.
디인디다 양 삼대 가서다 디 요마레스 가서다 지고 총차베 휴라 가서 기직 단다디 있게 남주 기직 제와라오다 남주 기직 월리스 킨 제와라오데 요마레스 지토가 요마레스 가능한 직태나고 가지 투그리 삼바라오다 디 이때 용구요 말이스.
And once somebody has died, like a loved one, then we no longer have like a connection with them like we do when they're embodied. Like that's kind of like an ongoing close relationship where we can like see them and spend time together with them.
Your mother.
Your mother.
The reason
And the reason for that is their consciousness has gone on. Most likely they have taken rebirth.
your 말에서 얘는 양가 좀 몰라야발 팽거를 그 리버트 컨디치고나 코랑 맞좀 몰라야 개와도비나 되네 펜도 요리라도 코랑라이 파티 베네 가와지요나 tellatene 고직 successful 차야 코랑라 야보차야 티게 콘디파노 에너지 티토고요레스.
And so we can't have kind of like an ongoing communication with them, if you will, but we can still, our prayers and our feeling of love for them can live on and benefit them, even in their future life. So for instance, wherever it is that they've taken birth, we can still hold them in our heart and make prayers for them. You know, may they be well, may they be happy, may their obstacles be dispelled, may they be successful in whatever they do. And then our good intention prayers and aspirations can definitely, that carries power and energy that can benefit them even in their new life.
Different.
Or in their different incarnation.
Thank you.
I have a question, Drupon. So if you, in your past life, were a monk or a nun or a lama, and you clearly know what path you have a strong connection to a certain path. And when you study that, you feel great joy. But you are willful and decide not to go down that path. And even though you hit roadblocks and, get some resistance, are there consequences for that? When you know that this is a specific path you're supposed to be following?
Tene me cheki o nga tente ngoma lama yin, nga tente ngoma dede trapa ani yin, tene nune chini nga chu dro na ke chimbore nga de lamga la drogo gare yini yang te sa dro ma dupa nang shin yoba, tene yang de barche yoba, tene gar sid lam de ma jugna, lam de ma drona, tene de be gare la ko gare dikpa drawo cha gare ve.
Rita di karsena ko ta terwa ta penna cha shawina ta ngaso lama seya ji yorwa are ko lama seya di ta mengi re serwa 이나 고 맹당 통통 댕게 지나 고 람가 로판로야 코나 요마로 코나 람가가 랩차 요레스
가레라?
라만 맹당 통통 요나
아하.
로와 고 람ang 오네 라마이나 고 람가 힘발라로 요마레스고 람가가 랩차 요레스
So first of all, like
or practitioners whatever lama or practitioner or monk doesn't matter
yini okay, all right, so I'm not sure that this lines up, but so he said, well, first of all, like Lama, first of all, is a title. So like if somebody has the title of Lama and they've like entered the path of training, as like a reincarnation.
the Mingdong Songba Lama, called Lama Yimbata, Lama quality Yuna, or teacher in Arita, Mingrawaya. The Yuna, called Lamgalan Yomaris.
So
Yang, that's your taking a Yema to go to somebody. Yang, that is Chitu Kimeng, Hawaii say, Lama in say, Thinley, Koji, Natsuji Paji Chanyo Mubayuna, Kota Lamgalan Yoris, Lamga Himba Yoris.
Yeah, so he just discovered he can't do partial thoughts and have me understand that he's getting at it has to be like the whole thing. And then, so he said, for somebody who is like has the name of a lama or some practitioner, and then inside they have the qualities, of a real practitioner, of a real lama, there's no way for them to go astray. They're going to be set on the correct path. But if somebody has the name of a lama and inside their mind is different, or they don't have the inner qualities, then even with that title or, in the circumstances of that would otherwise support that, they can still go down the wrong path.
제당당기 카나마도 제 인지들이 되네. 그 간데 이미나 메게 와치나. 득바 요레스. 다티 인사리다. 다티 제당당기 카나마도 제 텔라고 다티.
디야보코마 성체.
다 갈세나. 타완다오 키 추마지나. 득바 요레스. 제 데려와. 메제키 득바 추마지나 득바 요레스. 직바라와. 되네 메제키 추치나 상지 그레스. 다 타베키 추치나 타와니 추치나 상지 그레스 다티레스 tonda.
So it's really a matter of practicing Dharma. So like Jigten Sumgun points out that, that non-virtue is the same, for whether you're a monk, whether you're a nun, whether you're a lama, whether you're a lay person. Whoever practices virtue and practices the Dharma is on the right path. Whoever, and if somebody, whether someone's a lama or a monk or a nun, if they practice non-virtue, they're on the wrong path. So it doesn't, and like a lay person, if they practice, virtue, and if they progress on the path, they can attain Buddhahood. So it really is the practice of the individual, not, the title or the, whether or not they're monastic or if they're at a monastery or if they have an ordinary life. It really is the inner practice.
Okay, so now but sometimes we difficult, but we more the inner, so we can individually understand it, but sometimes we look externally, we said, for example, the mango, so we...
Like the mango,
very
the
difficult
example of
to
the mango.
judge.
It's hard to know. You can't judge from the outside.
Okay, dedication, show dedication.
Okay. So open to page 24 in your prayer book for these short dedication prayers. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Takumpa Ratnashri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. And then on to page 19. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Kyurje Ke Panyam Pa Me Payam Gong Ne Gong Du Belvarsho Chang Chub Sem Jo Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Kyurje Ke Panyam Pa Me Payam Gong Ne Gong Du Pelvarsho.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good day.
Good day. Thank you.